monkey.
Moped riders.
Michael here. You know, over time, I evaded one of the most important parts of a working bike. On a bike, you have wiring, and I've been evading ever learning anything about it until I was literally forced to work on it. My car had a wiring issue ever since I bought it, but it wasn't annoying. What was annoying is that it completely flopped the tech and safety test, which in Croatia and generally in European Union are quite strict as opposed to the rest of the world. And I had time to learn. And as a result of all that, I gained enough confidence I could wire up my own moped from nothing but a spool of wires, and that's the goal with Ender Jr. So in this video, we're wiring him from scratch with stuff you can find around the house. So the very first step for this task is to figure out which wire does what. Now, if I were using the stock switches on Ender, it will be one switch for essentially everything, and mostly plug and play, nice and neat. But what I'm about to install is something like APN Alpino style. So let's start cooking. So these switches are meant to be compatible with scooters and alike, but I'm gonna fit it onto Ender. To do that, I've gotta track every single wire. So I cut up and stripped all the wires, and the reason why is because it had a connector on it, and I need to write out what every single wire does. I'm gonna do that on the computer, and chances are I'm gonna have to combine multiple wires into one connector like this for power and ground wires, because that's what these switches usually lack. What they also lack is the fact that these wires aren't marked anywhere, and only the scooter it was meant for knows where the wires go. So I had to use a multimeter to precisely find the exact wires meant for different controls and write them out on a sheet of paper. So now that I've written it out on paper, time to pin out the rest of the signalization, because some is relatively straightforward and some isn't, so I have to figure out exactly which wire does what. Now that I have roughly where the wires go, I need to figure out how many wires I need, and also what exactly will I connect to what.
Victor!
To tackle the easiest part, I will install the rebuilt engine in here so that I can install the brand new ignition system. This ignition comes with an AC/DC regulator, and it works using a pickup as instead of the points, which I took off the point ignition because it began to die from all the point welding, and I will eventually need a beefier supply of spark for when I do the engine swap. Now I'm going to make some holes and tap in some thread so we can mount all this properly. Now that that is done, we can install the ignition and make sure it is timed somewhat right to check for spark. And it works. So now we can start with the goodies. Next thing on to-do list is to prep whatever wire I need to, because I will be connecting them one at a time to test as I go. I will connect the output wire for the main lights to the input of the low and high beam main wire. I feel like that's the easiest job to do right now. Next up is the main power wire, and this one is what will supply all of the juice. These wires are technically made for 220 volts, so it doesn't really matter which one goes where, to be honest. I'm doing it for the shits and giggles, so that my mom doesn't trip when I go ride at night. crimping the connector here and moving on to the ignition lock, which are already crimped up and ready to connect to. We need to connect the light wire on the right switch and blinker wires on the left. That way we can assure that the wiring system works at least temporarily before we move on. So let's try it out. It works all good so far. Now I'm going to also use the ground on the front lamp to test out the rears as well. So for now, I will just jam a wire in the hole, twist it up so I can test the rear. I'll connect the rear too, ground this, and yeah, nope. I'll do it the way it was supposedly intended, so if it works, it works. That means only the main headlights will work. With that said, I'm gonna do something stupid and equally smart. I'll connect the rear lights straight to the mains power and pull that through. The routing for that is the same as for the power wire, just backwards. So, onto the frame, up the wheel well and up to the wire to connect it. Alright. So since there's no cable going to the front wheels, I have to hold this lever in so I can test this. So this is position, right? And this is the stop light. So the second you pull on the brake, it comes on. The second you let go of the brake, it disappears. Having that done, time to wire the blinkers. The easiest way to match the front and the rear is to combine the wires like this and passing the wire to the back. And here, I will put up a splitter as well because I plan on putting the same blinkers from the front to the back as well. All was well and done so far. And everything was ready to be tested completely, and as well to test the ignition for charging. But then, off screen, the whole engine caught fire. Why? Well, the ignition, as I set it up, was a whole 180 out, and it spewed out lit up gas straight out the carby and lit the fuel line, which was in the way, on fire, which in return lit the whole bike on fire because the fuel line was leaking. Now this happened inside the closed garage, so I was extremely lucky it hasn't burned anything down. Now I did repair the damage to the best of my ability, but the CDI coil is too far gone, so I cannot exactly test the coil as it is right now, so I'll install the old stuff back on and test it that way. Anywho, I fixed it all behind the scenes. I repainted the frame, redone the wiring, well, the 5 wires that needed to be redone, and here is how it looks. So here's a rundown of all the features. We got position lights, low beam, high beam, blinkers, left and right, stop light, tachometer backlight, and the ignition lock holding all of the power just ready to be sent through. All works as intended. Works perfectly. Next time, we're tackling the engine and the building of one of the most powerful Tomos engines in Croatia. Thank you for watching, and as always, peace out.